Question for the woke morons out there: is Canada being colonized right now? Because if Canada was colonized in 1867 from the Indigenous by the settlers who had already been here for hundreds of years, the French, the English, the Scottish, the Irish, who built this civilization, if you're going to classify that as colonization, then what exactly do you classify as what's happening today in modern day Canada is anything but colonization? Vast majority of major cities have gone from 98% white in 1971, from 1867 to 1971 in this country, 98% white, to in most major cities well under 50%. The Muslim population has tripled in this country. Most estimates say that there'll be a majority between 2075 and 2100. You walk around any major city in Canada. I've lived in Toronto, Montreal, and visited Vancouver. It looks like a totally different place. If this were happening in China, if this were happening anywhere in the Middle East, if this were happening in Africa, you would have the far left wokies screaming about demographic replacement, about colonization. But of course, when it happens to white people, the woke have nothing to say there. It's about the one ancestry. If you're a Scot, if you're Irish, if you're English, if you're French, it's the only group with the woke that you're not allowed to be proud of. You notice that? How you're allowed to be proud of any other group, any other sexual orientation, pretty much any other signifier you're going to have besides the people who built this country. If you're one of those few groups, you're a racist, xenophobe, sexist for pointing anything out about the rapid demographic shift. Well, wake up call. If Canadians don't start becoming more conscious of what's going on around them, this country's going to disappear for what we've known it. The insanity that's gone on, where you are called a racist xenophobe for pointing out that inviting millions of people into this country against the will of the Canadian people has been an absolute disaster economically for young Canadians. It's not racist, it's not xenophobic, it's purely the facts. If you are under 40 years old in Canada, the likelihood that you are doing well financially is incredibly low, and that is a direct result of inviting millions of low-skilled, low-wage workers into the country. Basic supply and demand. You invite 1.5 million people in the country, you're only building 200,000 houses. Housing prices are going to go up. Housing prices have skyrocketed over the past 10 years, and it's not in line with other G7 countries. Canada is growing at a much more rapid pace. We've gone from an average home price of $430,000 to an average home price of over $700,000, nearly a doubling in a decade. And that's a direct result of inviting 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 million people into the country a year when you're only building 200,000 to 300,000 houses. This is very basic. We should not be inviting more people into the country than houses that are being built on an annual basis. Another misnomer that they try to sell you is that, Canada has an immigration system where we only bring in high-skilled labor for positions we need. That's absolutely untrue. They have opened the floodgates up to everybody. We have 60,000 people in a LINK program where they teach new arrivals basic literacy. These are people who don't know how to read or write in any language who are being invited in by the tens of thousands and enrolling in this LINK program. For Canadians who work jobs like at auto shop repairs, at Tim Hortons, at Wendy's, lower income jobs, these salaries have not grown in 11 years, and it's a direct result of bringing in cheap competition. Again, you don't have to be some fancy governor at the Bank of England, governor at the Bank of Canada to figure this out. You flood the zone with low-skilled, low-wage workers. That is going to suppress Canadian salaries. That's exactly what's happening. The last year that Canada had real wage growth was in 2014. What a coincidence. That's the last year the Conservatives were in power and we didn't absolutely open our floodgates up. But in Canada, if you point out that this mass immigration is horrific for Canadians economically, horrific for Canadians in terms of their ability to afford a home, to start a family, you crazily get labeled a racist and a xenophobe. Well, if that makes me a racist and a xenophobe, then label me that. I'd rather that than a government that sells me down the river, makes your life harder and harder every single year. And these statistics are not up for debate. They can call you all the names that they want, but the stats don't lie. The numbers don't lie. In 1971 in Canada, 55% of 30-year-olds were married and owned a house. Over half, 55%. You know what that number is in 2026? 12%. We've gone from a country where 55% of 30-year-olds could afford to buy a house and get married to 12%. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And this is a direct result of Canada at a pace unlike any other G7 country except the UK, opening up the floodgates and saying, everybody from the world, the way that our government announces it, you can just tell. They want people pouring into the country. They literally advertise, when you look on the government social media channels, they advertise free healthcare to new arrivals. I kid you not. Free healthcare. This is at a time when 6 million Canadians don't have a family doctor. The average wait time in an emergency room is between 20 and 24 hours. An estimated 50,000 Canadians are dying in excess a year because they can't get the healthcare they need. I personally know 2 people that have passed away because they couldn't get the healthcare that they need. And the government of Canada is advertising to new arrivals our free healthcare system. On top of, I'm doing some digging, on top of all the goodies that are offered to new arrivals to this country that are not offered to Canadians. The system is a complete scam, a complete joke. We already have 44 foreign-born MPs in our government, 12 foreign-born senators, and they're clearly not working on the best interests of the Canadian people. They're working on the best interest of the diaspora that they came from, whether it's a man, Gary Andrasagi, who wants to collect 2 million legally purchased firearms, man born in Sri Lanka, our Minister of Immigration, parents from Lebanon. She lived much of her childhood in Lebanon. We have people in our government who are literally working on behalf of other countries, the interest of other countries. The Canadian government should first and foremost exist to serve the Canadian people. This is not rocket science. You walk around any city, people aren't blind. They see the massive change. It feels as though you're either in the Middle East or India, and you're told if you say anything, mention anything about it, you're racist, you're xenophobe. Nobody gives a shit about your name calling anymore. Literally nobody does. The country has become unaffordable. No young people can afford a house. Young people are leaving in droves. 40% of the top 10% income earners under 30 have already left the country because Canada is so damn unaffordable, and they're doing absolutely nothing to fix the problem. Matter of fact, they're actually making it worse. They're inviting more people in, more TFWs, more IMPs. They're not removing the people who are here illegally. There's over 500,000 people in the country illegally, with another 2 million coming up in the next 18 months, and they're going to do absolutely nothing to remove them. We have a government working actively against the Canadian people right now. It's time to wake up and send these guys a message. We need a full moratorium on immigration until Canadian citizens can afford to buy a goddamn house. It's total insanity what's going on in this country. I'm going to be live on YouTube Wednesday night at 7 discussing further. If you want to support my work, you can subscribe to my Substack and the newsletter. Really appreciate everybody who signs up or donate at the Stripe link. So appreciate everybody who supports. I'm going to have another video coming out on Alberta's separation soon, and the Carney government really showing their authoritarian streak. We need to wake up, Canada.